what would be considered a successful season for both Wemby and the Spurs?
I think for a guy like Victor Wembanyama, obviously Rookie of the Year, that's reasonable for a player of his magnitude, a player that we've never seen before in the history of the game of basketball. I look at him as a Ralph Sampson combined with a Dirk Nowitzki type of player with maybe a little splash of Kevin Durant with the way he can shoot the ball off the dribble. Now look, that's a high praise. But I would agree. I think he will be, along with LeBron James, two of the most hyped players we've ever seen coming into this NBA draft, and he is deserving of it. I mean, he is 7'3", who can change the game at the rim as a primary defender, blocking shots defensively. He's been in a league in which he's elevated his own team in France. He's been playing against grown men for a long period of his life, similar to how Luka. So when people say to me, well, the physicality of the game, he's used to playing against it. Damn, I can make a point. They're more physical over in Europe than they actually are in the NBA today, Wendy.
He can't wait to play at the NBA, so it's less physical.
Exactly. Thank you. So, look, I'm going to start off with some unrealistic expectations because I think they should have unrealistic expectations for him. I got drafted in the year 2002. Yao Ming was like, I'm going to be an all-star. I'm like, Yao, really? You're going to be all-star? He got voted in to be an all-star. So as we get into
Chinese vote had something to do with it.
Hey, man, look, wherever you want to call it, it doesn't say the vote got you to be an all-star. Right. It says Yao Ming all-star. So as we get into, the two biggest stars in France, Mbappe and then Victor Wembanyama, you don't think the entire country of France is now going to vote for Victor Wembanyama? I think that's going to happen. And I think actually his play on the court, like what's realistic? 20-plus points per game, 23, 24. He's definitely going to get you close to double-digit rebounds. I mean, damn, the guy could just stand around and get you rebounds at the rim, but he's actually active and understands how to play with the motor. And I think he's going to get you 4 to 5 blocks a game. He's defending the perimeter, Wendy, and blocking shots against guards. And he has cat-like reflexes. So I do have unrealistic expectations for him because I've never seen a player in basketball built like him. Now, you can question his durability with him. Excuse me?
Are they a playoff team with him?
I think they get close. I'm not sure if they're a playoff team right out of the gate. I don't think they have enough talent to be a playoff team in the West who's loaded. But, I mean, it's 10 teams fighting for a playoff spot. They should be close to it or at least try to fight for it.
So, historically, as great as some rookies are, they don't typically impact winning at a high level. LeBron didn't make the playoffs till his third year. Also, they're almost always joining bad teams.
Bad teams.
Luka, I think they were the third year. Durant, I think the third year. I mean, we're talking about guys who came in and were studs. Typically, you don't see them make the playoffs. Spurs have a lot to do with this roster here. Number one, they've got $50 million in cap space. I expect them to go sign a center because I don't think that they don't want Victor to be their primary center. They have Zach Collins on the roster, but I expect them to go sign a starter quality center. Also, I think they may try to trade back into this lottery tonight. Because I think they'd love to get their hands on Bilal Coulibaly, who is a 6'8" wing, who happens to be Victor's teammate, who Victor has spent the last week praising in French and English. So they could also do something else.
Interesting.
So keep an eye on that. But I do not believe they will be a playoff team. I think he'll be excellent if he plays. He's got to play 65 games to qualify for Rookie of the Year under the new rules, by the way. I do think that Spurs will be careful with him. I think he'll have an excellent year, but I do think he's going to have a learning curve, and I don't expect instantaneous domination and greatness.
I totally agree with that. Look, there's a process to everything. And going from 35 games to 82 games, summer league, preseason, the physical. Like, his biggest problem isn't going to be playing against bigs. He's probably playing against that 6'8" physical four-man.
Seth, in this French league, they guarded him with big power forwards because that's the best.
That's the best way to get up and underneath them. And
that's
like
right.
You see even in the playoffs, you get switches all of a sudden, Brown's guarding, people and getting up underneath them. You're going to see PJ Tucker type guys, Draymond Green.
Circle the first game against Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, 100%. So look, he is a generational talent. He's got a unique skill set. He's going to impact the game to defensive end for sure as a help side defender. Yeah. But there's a process to everything. He's in the right organization, but let's not do, the Spurs and obviously the French connection and look what happened with Timmy. Timmy played beside David Robinson. And I don't care if they were best buddies off the court and all that jazz.
Both #1 overall picks for the Spurs.
But he protected him, physically protected him.
And he was 3 years older.
Yeah, 3 years. The idea of getting a front court player, so he's at 4, to just be basically police him and protect him and be an enforcer and be a big physical body to complement. And the league's different because the league back then was much more physical. So but it's going to take time, and that's just the way it is. Everything is a process.
Yeah.
In the end, as long as he stays healthy, as long as those feet stay healthy.
But you have some concerns.
The maturity. Yeah. You watch his interview. That's not an 18, 19-year-old. That dude is a grown man.
He's very impressive.
He's a grown man, the way he carries himself. You don't see college guys coming out. You don't see guys from G League with the maturity and the poise of this moment since LeBron.
You think he's going to live
okay
up
with
to?
that?
You think he's going to live up to the hype?
I do.
Do I need to put the glasses on?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, was Rome built overnight? No, but I think he is one of the most talented players I've ever laid my eyes on. Now, big sometimes can have foot issues. We've seen things with Greg Oden in a history of injuries and things of that sort with the physicality of the game, Ralph Sampson as well. But if he can stay healthy, like I'm expecting generational type things for him. I think he is that caliber of player. Is there a learning curve? Sure. I'm not over here.
I want to hear about
being
Wendy's
passive
meals
on
in
that.
France is what I want to hear about.
We might have gone to a truffle bar.
What did the Blazers do at 3?
Okay, so when the season ended, now we're in April 15th.
Okay.
The Blazers tanked at the end of the season. They shut Dame down. Dame was a good soldier and said, okay, I know this is going to hurt my reputation. I know I'm not going to make maybe All-NBA, which he didn't. And they tanked. It was a smart tank, obviously, with where they're at. But as Joe Cronin, their general manager, and Dame Lillard sat at the end of the season in front of the media, not sources said, straight to the cameras and said, I want to be playing with more veterans now. I'm not here for another teenager. Because last year they had the 8th pick, drafted Shaedon Sharpe, one of the youngest guys in the draft. Definite upside, no doubt, but he wanted guys who could play with right now. And Joe Cronin sat there and said, yep, that's what we're going to do. We're going to press the gas and we're going to go forward. And a month later, Molly, the tanking paid off because they moved from 5 at the 5th pick, which would have been a nice pick, to 3. Well, in this draft, number 3 is different. Now we have a different conversation. Look, I'm not a draft expert. I don't cover college like these gentlemen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you what Scoot Henderson is going to be. But I got people who do this for a living telling me Scoot Henderson would be the number 1 pick next year, and he might be the number 1 pick in 25. And so if you're the Blazers and you're like, man, we might be able to get a number 1 pick player at the number 3 pick, that changes everything. That's not the same as when you had the number 5 pick.
Yeah.
Okay? So now we have a situation where the Blazers are like, well, look, Dame, we are getting offered some players here. But we don't think any of these players are as good as Scoot Henderson's going to be.
Yeah.
And just trust us. Maybe watch Scoot in Summer League, because one of the things that happens in the NBA, you draft these guys and then Summer League comes around and you're like, whoa, this guy is good. Or Summer League comes around and you're like, oh, this might be more complicated. And I know that you would say, well, wait a minute, you've just had years to recruit them, but I'm telling you, that happens. The draft is one of the most important days on the NBA calendar, if not the most important, and it's the most inexact. Yeah. And I think what they want is to say, Dame, just let's watch Scoot. Let's watch Scoot in Summer League. Let's watch him in training camp. Don't be too rash. And the message that has come back, at least to me, from the Lillard side, is that his position hasn't changed. That what he said at the day after the season ended at his exit interview, I don't want a youth movement, has not changed. Okay, so if we were coming into an arbitration and the Blazers presented their side and Dame presented their side, my guess as an arbiter, as kind of what I am in the NBA, I would say, Blazers, you should not trade that pick, which is, by the way, what they're telling people. We're not going to trade that pick. I say the best thing for your franchise is to draft Scoot Henderson. And Dame, the best thing for you is to move on. 100%. Now, nobody wants to. Dame doesn't want to be the bad guy. The Blazers want to. They've been saying thread the needle. This is the term that the Blazers have been using. Other people, Jonathan Givony has been using. The idea being draft a guy who can help you right away and also be good long term, who also happens to play your position. Thread the needle. And by the way, they have other ways to get veterans. They have the 23rd pick in tonight's draft, which they can trade. They have other players on their roster that they can trade. But if you're drafting a 19-year-old, it sort of directs your franchise. What I have been told about Dame is that threading the needle is not something he wants to do.
Because you said he's going to be a good player. He is good. Look, Scoot is going to be a really good player.
Yeah.
Physical, strong, Westbrookish, doesn't shoot it great, but the physicality, ability to defend, ability to get in the lane, middle game, sees the floor, does all those things Talked to Rod Baker, who coached him in G League night. Absolutely loves his passion, his work ethic. And he's going to be a good player, but you're not winning with it. You get to a point, if you didn't learn, like, I want to compete for a championship.
Now.
I mean, I'm 30, he's 33.
That's right.
How many years left? I mean, Kyle Lowry, when did he start to deteriorate, per se?
I mean,
Although he was
guys,
great in the playoffs.
Dame was awesome last year. He's not really showing any signs, but, you know,
Eventually,
Mother Nature.
It just catches up. So eventually, he's got to get to a place where he can be on that stage that he's not been. That's just human nature. So, like, I agree with you. I think Portland's got to go in their direction. And I don't care what, 23rd pick, assets, they're not getting where he wants to go. And then he's got to find, if he truly wants to leave, it can deal with leaving Portland, which is his home, and he has so much great pride in. But if he
doesn't want to hurt him. He said 5,000 times, loyalty, 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 loyalty. He doesn't want to hurt him. I get it.
LeBron didn't want to hurt Cleveland. But I'll tell you one thing, those rings look pretty good.
Jay, get in here.
Jody Allen and Joe Cronin need to do right by Dame, right? You made mention, Wendy, of thread the needle, parallel paths. How'd that work out for Bob Myers when they tried to thread the needle with James Wiseman, right? We talked about that, right? How do you get youthful at the same time and add depth? You can't do that when you're trying to add to championship experience. So if I'm looking at the situation, and granted, these two players that I'm about to mention were at different stages of their career. One was at the end while Dame is still in his prime. I understand that. Similar situations, though. Author blank, right, of the Atlanta Falcons. Mm-hmm. You have Matt Ryan there, right? You're sitting there saying, how loyal can this guy be? This guy is giving me everything. He said the right things all the times. He showed up early. He's played through controversy. We went through rebuilding. We've stunk. They did right by Matt Ryan when they sent him to Indianapolis. Now, it didn't work out, but they did right by him. And I think if you're Jody Allen, if you're Joe Cronin right now, you look at Dame in the eyes and you say, you've done everything perfect for our organization. You have not asked to be out. I'm going to do it for you. Because I think a bigger insult will be, and I've heard this idea floated around, Wendy, I'm not even saying it makes sense. Whenever somebody says to me, well, they should trade the third pick for Zion Williamson. I'm like, that's a bigger insult than just telling me you're going to go through a rebuild. That's the biggest insult there is out there. Because now you're telling me, wait a second, you're not going to rebuild. You're going to bring in a guy who's played 114 games in 4 years. And the best ability for me to have a chance to win a championship is availability. And I can't even guarantee availability. You can't sell me on Zion Williamson. So the whole thought around Dame is either going to go to Miami or he's going to go to Brooklyn. And I thank goodness he doesn't have no trade clause, because I do think Joe Cronin should extract as much value as possible to get back in return. Because what I saw Washington do it's kind of like malpractice in a way. Not to get back into Washington, but
they're saving money.
Yeah.
I get what they're doing on the saving money part, but
assets. I mean,
I get
that's how you rebuild.
but the Bradley Beal trade hurt me.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.